You have done this before, not once, hundreds of times. The same morning, the same hesitation, the same small surrender. And you call it your personality. Welcome to the Stoic Compass. I am Epictetus, and today I am joined by Carl Jung and Lao Tzu. Today we are examining which of your habits are keeping you stuck, and how would you know? Let us start with what a habit actually is. It is not something that happens to you. It is something you have rehearsed until it no longer requires a decision. You have practiced it so many times that it feels like nature. But it is not nature, it is repetition. And repetition is a choice, even when it no longer feels like one.
I would not dismiss the feeling of nature quite so quickly. When a behavior has been practiced for long enough, it does not merely feel natural, it becomes structurally embedded. It is connected to something deeper than routine. There are habits that persist not because a person lacks discipline, but because the habit is performing a function they cannot yet see. Epictetus, your instinct is to say, decide differently, but a person cannot decide their way out of a pattern whose roots they have not examined.
You are both starting from the same assumption, that the person standing in the habit can see it clearly enough to act on it. That is the problem. You cannot see the frame you are standing inside. The habit is not just a behavior, it is a way of organizing reality. And you are using that same organization to try to examine itself.
That is a convenient excuse for doing nothing. Yes, habits have roots. Yes, patterns run deep. None of that changes the fact that every morning you wake up and make a series of small choices. Reach for the phone or do not. Speak the resentment or swallow it. Take the path you have always taken or stop right there and take one step in a different direction. The roots matter less than what you do at the fork.
But this is precisely where I must push back. The person who reaches for the phone every morning, why do they do it? Is it laziness? Sometimes, but often it is something else entirely. It is avoidance. The phone is not the habit, the avoidance is the habit. What they are avoiding is the silence, and in the silence, something they do not want to face. If you address only the surface behavior, you remove the phone and they find something else to reach for. The function remains, the symptom shifts.
That is closer, but even that framing puts the person in a kind of war with themselves. There is the real self and the hidden self, and one must excavate the other. I am not sure the conflict is where the work is. Sometimes a habit persists simply because nothing has interrupted it. Not repression, not shadow, just unbroken continuity. The water keeps running in the same channel because nothing has ever changed the ground beneath it.
Then change the ground. What are you waiting for? You do not need to understand why you built the channel. You need to stop filling it. The analysis is endless. The decision is now.
The decision is not always available to the conscious will. That is not an excuse. It is an observation about how the psyche actually works. I have sat with people who knew exactly what they were doing, who could describe the pattern in perfect detail and still could not stop. Knowledge of a habit is not the same as freedom from it. Something else has to shift. Usually it is not more information. Usually it is an encounter with what the habit has been protecting them from.
And yet, forcing that encounter does not always produce the shift. I have seen that too. A person can stare directly at what they are avoiding and nothing changes, because the staring itself is still a form of fighting. The habit does not dissolve under pressure. It dissolves when the pressure is gone and something else has quietly taken its place.
What does that look like in practice? You are describing a process that has no handle. How does a person grab it? If you cannot decide your way out and you cannot force your way out, then you are just waiting for grace. And I will not tell someone to wait for grace. That is not philosophy. That is surrender dressed up as wisdom.
I am not saying wait. I am saying the effort might be misdirected. There is a difference between effort and force. You can work steadily, quietly, without gripping so hard that you make the thing worse. A person who is trying too hard to change a habit is often reinforcing the self that has the habit, because all their attention is still on it.
There is something in that. The habit gains energy from the struggle against it. I have observed this clinically. A person who wages total war against a pattern sometimes finds that the pattern entrenches. It is as though the psyche interprets the war as evidence that the pattern must be very important indeed. What tends to work better is not destruction but substitution. Not fighting the habit, but filling the space it occupies with something that answers the same need more honestly.
Now you are saying something useful, I will grant you that. But let us be clear about what substitution requires. It requires that you first see the habit clearly enough to know what it is doing for you. And most people have not done that work. They think the habit is the behavior. They do not see the function. So tell me, how does someone actually do the seeing? How do they step outside a pattern they are living inside?
They probably cannot do it alone, not through introspection. Introspection uses the same instrument that built the pattern. The interruption usually comes from outside. A loss, a conversation, a moment where reality does not do what the habit predicted it would. That is the crack. That is when the frame becomes visible.
Yes, and I would add, it can also come from paying close attention to what provokes a disproportionate reaction. The places where you overreact, where you feel strangely compelled, where the emotion does not match the situation, those are the places worth examining. The habit is loudest where it is most defended.
Here is what I know. A person can theorize about their habits forever. They can map the shadow, wait for the crack, attend to the overreaction, and still go home and do exactly what they did yesterday. At some point, the examination has to produce a decision, one concrete decision. Not to fix everything, to change one thing. That is where freedom begins, not in understanding and the doing.
The doing, yes, but which doing? The doing that comes from genuine clarity moves differently than the doing that comes from self-coercion. You can feel the difference if you are paying attention. One has a quality of ease, even when it is difficult. The other has a grinding quality, like fighting a current. Not all effort is the same.
And the habit that is keeping you most stuck is almost never the one that feels like a problem. It is the one that feels completely reasonable. It feels like common sense, or self-protection, or just who you are. The problematic habits wear disguises. The disguise is usually virtuous. I am being careful, I am being realistic, I am protecting the people I love. And underneath it, there is a fear that has not been named.
Fear is not an excuse. I do not say fear does not exist. I say you can act despite it. Every person who has ever done something difficult was afraid. The question is not whether the fear is real. The question is whether you will let it make your decisions for you. A habit that runs on fear is not a fixed truth about your nature. It is a decision you are making repeatedly to let the fear drive.
And yet, attacking the fear is not always the answer either. Sometimes the fear is pointing at something real. Sometimes the habit that looks like cowardice is the mind registering, correctly, that something is genuinely dangerous. Not every stuck pattern is avoidance. Some are wisdom that has calcified past its usefulness. The question is not just, am I afraid? The question is this fear still accurate, or am I living by a map that does not match the current territory?
That is a precise distinction and an important one. The map metaphor is useful here. Many people are navigating by an internal map drawn during childhood, during a time when certain behaviors were genuinely necessary for survival, or belonging, or love. The behavior that kept them safe at 7 may be the very thing that keeps them isolated at 40. The map is not wrong, it is outdated, and the updating cannot happen through willpower. It requires being willing to look at where the map was drawn and under what conditions.
You keep returning to the origins. I understand why. But I'm thinking about the person who does not have years of therapeutic archaeology available to them, who wakes up tomorrow and needs to do something different. For that person, what do you actually say?
Look at one day, not the whole pattern, not the origin, just today. What did you do that you did not decide to do? Where did you find yourself somewhere? In a conversation, in a reaction, in a choice, without quite knowing how you arrived? That is the habit. That is the place worth examining.
And ask not just what you did, but what you felt just before you did it. The feeling that precedes the habitual behavior is the key. It is almost always some form of discomfort, restlessness, anxiety, a vague sense of wrongness. The habit is a response to that discomfort. If you can learn to sit with the discomfort for just a moment longer before responding, you create a space, a very small space, but that space is where choice re-enters.
Now we are getting somewhere. The space, that is exactly right. Not the history, not the archetype. The space between the discomfort and the response. That space is yours. It has always been yours. The habit has convinced you there is no space, that the response is automatic, inevitable, just how you are. It is lying to you. The space exists. The question is whether you will use it. You have heard 3 arguments. Now hear the one thing none of them said plainly.
The habit that is keeping you most stuck does not feel like a habit. It feels like a reasonable response to the world as it actually is. That is how you know it has been running a long time. It has become indistinguishable from your perception of reality itself. Here is the truth about stuck habits. They are not failures of willpower. They are solutions that have outlasted their problems. At some point in your past, this behavior worked. It reduced something painful or secured something necessary. The mind does not forget that. It keeps offering the same solution because the solution once mattered. The problem is not the behavior. The problem is that you are still answering a question that is no longer being asked. So how would you know? You look for the places where your reaction is larger than the situation warrants, where you feel compelled rather than chosen, where the outcome keeps repeating even though you keep telling yourself you will do it differently this time. Those are the places. The habit is loudest where it is most protected. You do not need to tear it apart. You need to see it once, clearly, honestly, and ask, what is this still protecting me from? And then ask whether that protection is still necessary. Today, try this. Choose one moment from the past week where you reacted in a way you later questioned. Do not judge it. Just write down, honestly, what you felt in the moment before the reaction. Name the discomfort that came first. That discomfort is where the habit begins, and the beginning is always where you have the most room to change.
The habit did not build itself overnight, and you will not see through it in a single conversation. But you have heard something today that you cannot fully unhear. The question is not whether you have habits that are keeping you stuck. You do. Every person in this room does, including the three of us. The question is whether you are willing to look at the moment just before the pattern takes over, that small, quiet moment, and ask what is actually happening there. That is not a grand act of transformation. It is a small act of honesty. Do it once. See what it costs you. Then decide. If today's conversation has served you, take it further. Pay Attention by C. Tribune. 12 Lessons in the Practice of Seeing Clearly. Available now on Amazon.